Is it not? I'll look it up. Volume's all the way up. It's on the owl,
Everything's plugged in, right?
recording in progress. Oh, it is transcribing
Is
though.
this the
See it.
new Microsoft Office?
This is the new Microsoft Teams.
It doesn't say recording in progress.
Oh, I thought it did last time. Okay.
Oh,
It just
maybe
like
I'm
shows
just
up like
used to
it's like
that.
a little box.
Yeah, you can see.
Yeah.
You can see it's actually, well, you can see it's recording, so I'm pointing at my screen. You can see it's recording everything I'm saying about how it's recording. So we should be okay. Sorry, yeah, this is, I think, only the third meeting of Teams, so here we go.
okay. Calling this meeting to order and looking for approval of the agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? I don't think so.
Yeah, actually.
What do you do?
On the items, the vote records, it should be 4-0.
Vote records.
So like items 2, 3, 4 are votes. It says 3-0 on there. Oh, sorry.
Right, because I think it was just Josh that was virtual, right?
Yeah.
That meeting. Yeah.
I'm jumping ahead though.
No, oh, I'm sorry, we're talking about,
The agenda's fine.
oh. Okay. All in favor, say aye. Again, nobody's against it. Okay, approval of the minutes. So this is where you're saying there's a problem?
There's a problem.
Okay, where's the problem? What number?
Number 2, oh, hold on. Number 2, 3, and 4, it should read 4-0. It says 3-0.
Okay,
Like all the
Well,
rest of it.
present, we should have had. Rest of that David Kane was present and that, Tom Oshkosh chairman was present too. Erdman.
Yep.
And he's not listed under present.
that's right.
We can add, so essentially Jim Erdman, town president, Oshkosh, and David King, resident.
And
We'll add that in.
Oh, that was sorry, I have my notes mixed up. Back to the agenda. I just wanted to add, in the future, could we put public comment 2 minutes on the agendas in the future?
That's a good idea.
Just because that's what the county board does.
In the future, we will do
They have it
it.
written on the agenda too. I
Yeah.
can just pull the verbiage. Okay.
Yeah.
I think it just says like -2 minutes.
Okay, so looking for approval of the minutes with corrections.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
I,
Opposed, nay. All right. Public comments. This will be you two gentlemen. Do you have anything to say?
minutes.
No. Do you have any public comments?
Oh. Yeah. Yeah, I'm Jim Erdman, town of Oshkosh chair. Last meeting, we were, discussing a trial run this year on ATVs from West Wind on Ohio Wash to the bridge. And that's what we're here to look into, see what,
This is the time for public comments. So if you have something you want to say about this is the time.
yeah, we'd like to see that open up as a trial run this winter for the ATVs on the Ohio Wash from West Wind to the bridge. For ice fishermen for ice fishermen.
Because there's really no good access, no parking to speak of without people getting extremely upset.
Do you want to introduce yourself?
I can, is that what you'd like me to do?
Yes.
My name's Rob Rasher, 2807 Sunset Point Lane,
Okay.
the resident of the town of Oshkosh. And basically, over the years, this has been a problem, parking, more than anything. So what we're trying to do is alleviate the citizens on both sides of Sunset Bay for being frustrated with the parking situation by providing the fishermen with a way to get onto the ice and off of the ice in a manner that won't affect any resident. So we're hoping that you all will agree with us. You know, this is, I think, the ice is always there for people to go fishing. Problem is, can you access it? You know, in a reasonable manner without upsetting anybody, you know? So we're trying to alleviate what's been an ongoing problem. Thank you.
Anything else from you, sir? Okay,
I think you covered it. Thank you.
all right, closing public oh, there's nobody online, right?
Just triple check, there wasn't before. Nope, still not.
Okay, closing public comments. Discussion action on ordinance modification, chapter 19.27.
Right, so this is the, just kind of refresh everyone's memory, because this was, talked about at the last meeting. And we were gonna try to get it onto the county board agenda for November. I spoke with the, corporation council immediately following that meeting. And unfortunately, their meeting was already scheduled. The agenda actually gets finalized the day before on Monday. So I know, when John was here, he thought maybe it actually gets finalized on Tuesday, but
Yeah, that's what he
it
said.
was already finalized. So, but we tried. So basically that is why it's on the agenda for, today. And then if it were to pass, then it would be on the county board agenda in January. The goal of this ordinance change is exactly what, the committee, spoke about and what there was a suggestion, at the last meeting. And you'll see in Exhibit A, there's some, it looks like there's more changes than there really are. There's just some capitalization things we thought we'd take care of while we were at it in this section. But really the key difference is under section, for instance, 1B and 4B is how typically, so I'll just read it since it's so short. So 1B, this is under the snowmobile trail season. No snowmobiles shall be operated on the recreational trails other than during the snowmobile season. No other vehicles may be operated on the recreational trail during the snowmobile trail season except police vehicles, emergency and rescue vehicles, or county maintenance vehicles, unless permission is granted by the county executive or parks director. So, and I'll just read the last one too. This is during, basically the regulars, basically from April through November. So really the more important one is the first one that I read, 1B, because that's during the November through, March time period, March 31st time period, or I should say December through March 31st time period. This one says no vehicles of any kind shall be operated on recreational trail except police vehicles, emergency and rescue vehicles, or county maintenance vehicles unless permission is granted by the county executive or parks director. So basically, the bottom line is in order to be able to do a trial run, this was the suggestion by the Parks Committee at the last meeting and by staff was basically if you allow that permission, then that way we have the opportunity to do it as a trial. So that way, if there are issues, staff do have basically my staff and myself and the county executive do have the ability to pull it back if it becomes either a big maintenance issue or if we see ATVs continue to go down. Obviously, we're going to do things like sign the trail, obviously advertise on Facebook and social media, how far you can go and how that it's more or less the best way we're going to be describing it is it's a way to cross the trail. It's a trail crossing. We're not going down the trail or utilizing the trail for ATV purposes, for recreational purposes. We are using it to cross the trail to get onto the lake. So that is going to be how it's advertised. So it would go, the initial thought from staff, from my perspective, is that it would go from West Wind. Otherwise, it's just too confusing doing anything in the middle. So from West Wind Drive and that parking trailhead to that first bridge. So it's very easy to identify that it's from here to here with those two landmarks being the parking lot and the bridge. We'll sign the bridge, we'll sign at the parking lot, and we'll remove those signs. Well, we might have to sign it during the summer months too, so people don't think they can continue to use it in the summer months, but we'll see how that goes. So the idea here is basically to put in a clause that allows the county executive or parks director, you know, if for some reason I'm absent or if there isn't a parks director or vice versa, there's not a county executive at the time, that there's two people that can make this decision. Yeah, so that's.
You pulled the map to show what you're talking about.
Yeah, pull the map again.
I'd make a motion to, modify the chapter 19.27, allowing ATVs from West Wind parking lot to the lake.
One second.
All right,
So basically, I'll just draw it because it's just, but basically the parking lot's down here. This is West Wind Road right here.
okay,
So, and then the rectangular piece here is the corridor of the trail.
Okay.
And the first bridge you can see is pretty much right here. So, it's that portion, I can zoom it, oops, it's one too many. Basically, it's this portion of the trail.
okay.
Hey, I got a question.
Mm-hmm.
From what I remember,
most of the people might know this. When you get to that point where you can go onto the ice, is that slope so they can, or is that just a drop?
There is
What I
a,
remember was kind of a drop out there.
there is a set of steps almost, there right now. I wanna say it's 2 steps right now, where the proposed location is. We're to see how that holds up to the ATV use. You know, if there's issues down the road where we need to do improvements to it, we'll work with the town of Oshkosh and see if there's anything we can do, or out of street fishing, or basically to see if there's any improvements that we can do to, if we start seeing washout essentially. Obviously, we don't want to lose the trail, lose the levee. Of course, it was an old railroad bed, so it's got a good base. But at the same time, you know, you get ATVs over and over and over during the freeze thaw cycle. You know, we'll see how it holds up and then go from there.
So the ATVs be going over the steps?
Yeah, because it's more gradual and there's no trees in the way. So it's a logical location to be able to go there. For instance, I know snowmobiles have utilized that spot because snowmobiles going down the trail can then get onto the lake. And that's a spot that they've used.
And then that doesn't damage the steps that are there.
Well, and that's what we're gonna see. I mean, they're very simple steps, but it's also a levee that's been there for a while and it should be well built. These old railroad bed trails. But if we do start to see wear and tear, that's why we want this clause here. So that way, if we do start to see wear and tear, we could in theory sign it today, you know, saying,
Okay.
oh, sorry, you know, the weather's just not
Yeah,
right for it right now, or we're having issue, you know, that way it gives that flexibility that we could close it if needed.
okay. Sorry, Supervisor Ponce, I interrupted you.
Yes, what I'm trying to get at is, there's only gonna be, from where you park your vehicle, there's gonna be a point on the other end.
Mhm.
That's gonna be basically a launch.
Yeah, it's basically.
It's not gonna be, we could just drive off the trail, you know what I'm saying? You
Right.
always get people like that.
Oh, and that was obviously staff's concern is, of course, it sounds very simple and you can sign it and you can advertise it and you can do everything in the world, but there's still gonna be the people that just don't care. And so that's what we have to see if obviously it gets abused and those people rooting for everyone else, then that'll be what it is.
And
Then
we'll have
close
fulfilled
it.
our obligation. We will have given them access. If they use it accordingly, they can continue to use it. If
Right.
they abuse it, well, it can go away just as fast as it is granted.
And that was the
And
theory.
that's
with
in
what
your,
we're trying to do.
document. So it's
Yep.
like, they have the opportunity to use that access, providing they use it the way it's meant to be used.
Right.
And if they're gonna basically abuse it, well, it'll go away.
Right,
And it'll be just like on Edgewood, they won't be using it because they basically abused it, so they took the parking away. So hopefully they learn their lesson and they use it properly and everybody's happy. They can fish and the residents are happy because they're not using their vehicles.
Blocking their driveways.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, if we see ATVs going 50 miles per hour down the straightaway trail while people are trying to walk and bike on it, there's still fat tire bikers, there's still snowmobilers, there's still other users on the trail in the winter. We have data on that there are trail users other than just the snowmobiles on the trail in the winter, so it's still a shared trail. And they need to be yielding and vice versa, there's no reason to be going that fast, you know, so there's gonna be things like that posted. But roughly where that green indicator is roughly where the steps are, so it's before the bridge. When it starts to open up here, that's different, that's a steeper drop, so it's somewhere in this tree area. You can see how the trees end here and they start here. I believe it's somewhere right in this area.
So it's an already known path.
Yeah, I mean, like snowmobile users use it because the trails have been groomed for snowmobiling for all since the 80s. So that's been an access, at least for snowmobiles. Now, one thing I cautioned about last year and the year before is from a county perspective, or county owned land, we're only gonna be able to fit 6, 7 trucks with trailers here. But we'll see how that works too. We'll see how it goes. So.
and I only see it really being used in the November part of, as soon as they can drive on the ice, they're gonna drive on the ice. They don't want to basically go off there. They would rather just drive off on the ice and go ice fishing.
And this November was
You know,
pretty much no ice.
No,
Yeah.
so it's, so I don't really see it being used more than a couple weeks, probably out in the spring and the fall, and hopefully they take care of it and they don't abuse it. and everyone will be happy. And if they do abuse it, well, then it'll go away just as fast as it came.
And that's just the thing is that, obviously staff aren't gonna be, I just don't have the capacity for our staff to go out there daily to check the conditions or to check on, if people are abusing it. So it's gonna be one of those, and that obviously, we don't have the monitoring system. We don't have park rangers in the winter and that type of thing. So we'll see how this trial run goes.
And then where the place where it ends,
Mhm.
and they're heading down these couple of steps to get to the water.
Mhm.
That's marshland?
No.
It's what?
It's rocky. It's a shoreline.
Okay.
There's no vegetation.
Okay, all right.
Very minimal vegetation right now.
I was misinformed.
No, the other side, this, if you're thinking of any wetland, at the east end is wetland.
Okay,
This, you can basically see, this is reeds and this is
okay.
the water here, obviously the bridge, the water passes under, but yeah, this area here is.
So the assumption is they're gonna head that way into the water rather than towards the wetlands.
Yeah, correct. They're gonna head to the west, yes, to
Yeah.
the left on the map.
Okay.
Mhm.
I was gonna say west, but I
And
wasn't
this
sure.
is Butamore.
It's going,
This is like, to
Yeah,
kind of get a
alright.
bigger picture. They're not gonna go east because you can see it's just a small creek. So it's west.
Okay.
To Butamore here.
that's gorgeous. Okay. Any other discussion? All right, let me take action. Did you make a motion?
Yeah, Rachel second.
You did, and it's been seconded? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Okay. Park director updates.
Right. Grumman has electric as of yesterday, at the Grumman boat landing. They do still have to turn it all on, energize it, but it is connected by WPS. It's connected to the box. There's just a few things before we turn on the lights to make sure all the lights work. The project will go into spring a little bit because we have to make sure the restoration comes in, and we were not able to test the well. We weren't able to test the water because by the time the electric's in now. So we haven't been able to test the pump. So we'll be paying out most of the project. We'll hold back most of the or probably about half of the retainage, and basically wait till spring, make sure everything operates. We have water coming out of faucets. It should be pretty simple. They're ready to well test and that type of thing. So like the water quality is okay, and passes with the DNR. So really that project is pretty much complete. We are looking to change the orientation of the kayak launch a little bit in the spring, just based off of some of the beating it took in the fall, just due to the lake and the orientation. We think if we turn it a different way, it'll work. So they're going to reinstall it again in spring. We have to take it out every fall anyway, so it's taken out just because that's what's going to happen every fall. So yeah, so the Grumman boat landing, that project is pretty much, I would say 99% complete at this point, other than some final inspections.
We got that dirt, kind of like where they go around the circle. Is that just gonna have grass in that, or is that kind of?
That was seeded as grass, but Kyle and I already have talked about, we might put already some posts, because someone drove into it already. And
that's what I figured.
potentially a few tree plantings, potentially. Well, obviously we want tree plantings that are gonna grow up, more shade trees, so that way you can still see into, we don't want the parking lot shielded or anything like that. Oh, and actually on the Grumman update, it did not, you may have noticed it did not make it on personal and finance for November, or for December, the cameras. That was more than likely just a matter of, I submitted everything, but with me being on vacation and everything, and by the time I got back, the agenda was already finalized. So I do have that already in the folders that it needs to be for January. So just so you're aware, if you want that in the disc golf basket. So I know that's not necessarily part of the Grumman update, but just so you're aware. Then that's our home project. You'll notice the home's gone. So that went well. We did start receiving bills, actually yesterday from Highway, and we've been keeping track with them anyways. So as I kind of updated you, the asbestos, now that we had to include the whole house as asbestos, a couple things on that. First of all, the solid waste department was fantastic. Kathy over there and John, they reached out to Outagamie, helped us to make it as a internal project, because I believe I updated the committee. It would have been, going off the top of my head, it was either $270 or $370 per ton for friable asbestos, which essentially means like an aerosol dust type asbestos. And they were
That's called friable?
Yes. Yep.
It doesn't get fried. It must be a different name.
That's the name of it. And then
Okay.
non-friable is where basically, it doesn't, and non-friable, is a lot cheaper. It's about 70 something. Well, long story short, they gave us their internal rates. They reached out to Allegheny County, worked with them. They gave us their internal rates, and so it was only like $58 a ton compared to 54 for construction. So it definitely added cost to the project, because now the whole house was, had to be, contaminated, even though it was only in small sections of the house. But that all being said, we had 20,000 for highway to do their work, and they sent us a bill for 18,000, so we should be in budget there. And then we had 15,000 for abatement and for the landfill fees. And we were hoping to move the water for the community garden with those funds. We're gonna be within budget other than the community garden, so we'll have to reach out to Advocap and see, or come back potentially in spring and see if there's some funding. I mean, and it's a smaller amount. We were only anticipating about 5,000, so we'll talk with facilities, we'll figure out, they still don't have a plumber. We'll figure out what the true cost will be to move that water now that we've capped it, the well's still there. And then see if Advocap might be able to chip in, or, to see if for the community garden, or if water is that important, or, we'll have those conversations with them. The meat of the project, getting the barn and the house and everything down, that came in budget, so that's a positive, especially considering what happened with the abatement. Comprehensive outdoor.
Oh, wait, I got a question about the
Yeah.
answer. Okay, so was there a foundation or a basement? Is it still there? Is it a hole? Are we filling it in?
So it got filled in. So basically, we took the walls of the foundation. Typically, we just dumped it because we don't have any plans to develop anything there other than maybe a road, an access way in the future, to get to the Netzer property and to get to the expo. Basically, we buried it under, or more than a foot under the surface.
Okay,
And because that would have been very heavy material to haul to the landfill and would add a lot of
okay.
tonnage.
And the well that you capped,
Mhm.
how is it capped? And do we know it can't be opened at all?
Yeah, it was capped by facilities and by our staff.
Do we need to check it periodically? I'm saying this because I
No.
lived 17 years in the Upper Peninsula,
Mhm.
where a child actually did go down a well in the 60s, and her
Oh,
body is still there. They couldn't, has been her.
no, and that's a different
Gotcha.
type of well. That's more of an open well. This is an encased pipe well. Basically, when I say, capped it, basically picture your PVC pipe, we put a cap over it.
Okay.
Underground, so that way it doesn't freeze.
Okay,
So
all
we
right,
just needed to preserve the well.
all right, that's all I need. Those are two questions I had for Netzer.
Yeah.
Okay, comprehensive.
Comprehensive outdoor rec plan, we are currently working through that plan. We should have a draft plan by January. We're actually meeting with a consultant today. They actually might even have a draft plan for staff to see today. They had mentioned, so we're working through that before Christmas time here. The goal is to present the Spirit Fund request, the comprehensive outdoor rec plan, capital plan for the Parks Department, all essentially together, so everyone can see the big picture of what the requests are, whether it's capital, Spirit Fund, and then obviously our 5-year plan for the comprehensive outdoor rec plan, in January. So I know I haven't talked to you about this at all yet, but potentially, because we're actually meeting again for capital projects on Wednesday, so I didn't have anything for this meeting. But obviously it would be good for this committee to see the capital projects before, and I know they're trying to make that schedule, to eventually get to November next year. I think they're trying to do it in January this year. So if there's a special orders meeting, I believe, gonna be the first week of January, so I might have to see if either late December, early January, if this committee can meet, so I can get you guys caught up to speed on, and since it's related to comprehensive outdoor rec plan, the capital request verbally at this point, for next year. Obviously, there's more for the next 4 years, but for next year's request is the parking lots in the community park, the Fox Crossing Dog Park parking lot, because we've been having issues every year since it's opened. Just get that paved, have that a lot less maintenance, so that way highway doesn't have to bring their grader up there every spring. And then Boom Bay, because they're gonna be up on, it's either M or MM, basically Richter Lane, the highway department's gonna be redoing that whole road. And they're pulverizing and repave, so same thing that Boom Bay parking lot's gonna need, and that is needed to be done. So we're gonna include that. And then the Walcott Dam, we're waiting a week from now, we'll find out if there's any objections to our grant. That's more Spirit Fund request, I apologize. I was focusing more on capital. The other capital is actually funds to repair shelters 1, 2, and 4. to get those, ADA compliant, the bathrooms, I know I've mentioned at this meeting, the locks are too high, lowering the locks. Which essentially means replacing the doors, putting automatic timers on there for vandalism purposes, so they lock, at night. The asphalt around the shelter, you can kind of see actually as it gets up to the shelter, it dips. So we're eventually gonna have water issues if we don't do something with that. So looking to get rid of all the asphalt underneath, grind it up, pour it all back in concrete, all underneath.
So that's reusable. Once it's ground up, it's reusable.
We can use it as a base, but we're gonna
Okay.
do concrete probably around
But
the
it's,
shelters.
we don't have it, so
Shelters.
we don't have to have it, carted out.
Some of it might have to come out, but
Okay.
the highway probably could potentially use it too, or we could use it
Okay.
too. So, but, you know, we'll have to figure out how we're going to structure that. Painting the steel structures under them, you can see they're starting to rust, so sandblasting, painting those, epoxying the bathrooms, the kitchens, basically making shelters 1, 2, and 4 pretty much brand new again, because the structures themselves, the block is in good shape. So, and the roofs were redone within the last 10 years. They're actually, facilities redid the roofs on 1 and 2 very recently. And then within the Spirit Fund request, we have that request to replace shelter 3. So once that's all done, other than pavilion, which is a larger topic of discussion for the future, all 4 shelters plus the soccer shelter would be in very good shape and for the future. So, and then we do have a request for replacing the doors in the expo, the walls, the removable walls in the expo, because we can't get parts for them anymore. They're original partitions, the partitions that can divide off all the
Right.
rooms. And that has to do with our renters. Obviously, people are paying money to use that facility and we make revenue off that facility. So replacing those is important. Off the top of my head, those are the biggest things. Obviously, we'll discuss those in the future, but just kind of a little heads up there.
Couple questions. When you talk about the Fox Crossing Dog Park, you talk about the Jerry Finch Park?
Yes, I apologize.
Okay, could you make the minutes reflect that that's not the Fox Crossing Dog Park, but the Finch Dog Park? And then, did you mention pickleball? I didn't remember hearing you say about pickleball.
That's within a Spirit Fund request.
Okay, and then you said disc golf, the signage is all up, but
Mhm.
the nets are still to be,
The baskets, that was that, so when talking with Justin, so number one, the budget request that we had, budget amendment request that was supposed to be at, this last week is gonna be in January. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna probably actually sell the baskets closer to when we can remove them, so there's not as much confusion from people that purchase them. We'll still state on there that obviously they're gonna purchase them, we'll remove them, and because we want to pretty much not have much of a wall, with
Right.
no baskets. But yes, so that will be happening in spring, summertime, essentially.
and then our large sign, the Winnebago County, the great big sign,
The expo
yeah,
sign.
is that in
So
the works?
I talked to Bob from, I apologize, he's changed his company name once or twice since I've been working with him over the last 2 years, but, so that agreement that was approved by the county board in September or October. Been working with Bob, who's the owner, and he actually he was working through some things, had some vacation, but he's gonna be submitting, a variance request to the town of Oshkosh in January. So beginning of January, he wanted to wait till after the holiday season at this point. He
Okay,
was pretty much ready now, but with the holiday season.
and this may be phase 2 or phase 3, the arch, the big old arch. that's
That
back
is
up.
more part of phase 2,
Okay.
and that's one of the capital requests I forgot about. So the engineering for the expo is also a capital request for next year.
Okay,
Now, all of these things that I mentioned obviously are more verbal at this point, and we're meeting, like I said, on Wednesday to finalize more things like the request from the county executive, and then I'll know for sure. But most of these things I would assume would stay in that county executive request.
and I bounce it back to pickleball, and you're making a Spirit Fund. Did you get any funding at all for that, from,
No, we haven't
Bruce?
received any committed funds from soccer, rugby, or pickleball at this point. I'm just thinking of all the groups that are part of that Spirit Fund request. I do know Bruce has reached out to various donors, he's told me.
yeah,
do
that's
know
what I
rugby
heard too.
Has created a website in the back end because they want to do fundraising for additional items. And I'm sure soccer, I know I talked to a few soccer people at the last, I know Steve was there as well. I think they would probably pile their resources to United and OIC, or Oshkosh Youth Soccer, sorry, I shouldn't use acronyms, but basically to probably fundraise for additional needs at the soccer
Okay.
complex too. So I think everyone's kind of waiting to see what the true request is, so then they can go to their donors and say, hey, this is what the county's committing. Now, we can match and do this, this, and this, and this. So
Okay, any other questions for the for the park director.
Yes,
Yes,
now that you brought that up, on the comprehensive plan. Pickleball and all that's all inclusive of that plan.
Mhm. Yep.
Right, because.
Yep.
I call the city of Fond du Lac.
Yeah.
And there's a huge difference in pricing from what they were asking. Huge.
In what sense? Or you mean for the project
did-
itself?
God, I wish I could remember what the price was. I think they did something like 8
Mhm.
pickleball courts. They put it over tennis.
Mhm.
And I think it was like either 50 or $150,000, which was a lot less than what we're asking. I guess where I'm
It
looking
depends
at,
if they put it over tennis, they might have already had existing fencing. We need to put in new fencing. They, so if they, yeah, if they just put it over a tennis court, they probably milled the tennis court and then just repaved it. Or they might have honestly, if the tennis court was in good shape, they might have just color coded right over the tennis court, which would have been even cheaper.
I guess where I'm going with this. I hate to bring up what I call sore item, and that's the sheriff boathouse. They get an estimate from only one company. And then it gets approved, then that company jacks the price, it gets approved again. I'd like a little due diligence. I'd like to see a couple bids on everything, not one.
So all of, any project over 25,000 has to go for public bidding. So the budget number, for instance, for the pickleball courts is from an engineering company that we've worked with before that has basically what they have did is they provided real world numbers of projects that they have done
Yeah.
this year or last year. So multiple projects. So they're basically saying, this is what you should budget for it and anticipate. And then we still have to go to bid exactly. So we're, all these projects, I mean, honestly, I'm trying to think of any of them. Every project in the Spirit Fund or the Spirit Fund request or the capital improvement request is gonna be over 25,000. They're all gonna need to be bid out. The biggest question that we'll have is once, if it's approved, the bigger question will be, do we combine a lot of those projects into one project? Engineer them all as a whole, but that's a whole nother thing that staff will work through,
I
but.
just want the due
Mhm.
diligence.
Oh, yeah.
done To make sure we get the
Mhm.
most for our buck.
And in terms of when you're requesting funds, that's what you do is you look at actual built facilities and they looked at this year built facilities and last year built facilities. So, real numbers that were bid out from other communities. And then that's how they got that. Cause the Fond du Lac 150,000 with
I
8
think-
courts, there's gotta be more
It's been
to
a
it.
couple months. I forgot
Yeah.
the numbers, but. they
Because
were
we have to do
pleased with it.
fencing, we have to do pathways leading to it, we have a grass space, so we're gonna have to add gravel, we're gonna have to grade, we're gonna have to do a little bit more than just. At least from what you described, if it was an old tennis court, either they milled it and then paved over it. Or if it was in good shape, they might just color coded over it and just basically had to move the nets, because obviously they're smaller nets.
All I'm trying to get at is, I'd like to see more than one
Mhm.
vendor bidding on stuff.
And that's like when we had Grumman, we had 5.
I'm not saying you haven't had them.
No, I'm just saying, absolutely, that's always the goal.
Be the
Yeah.
sore spot in my
Yep.
throat.
Nope, that's always a goal, is to have multiple vendors, so.
Just like that project is actually $3.8 million, which includes the walkout end. So it does, like the one baseball diamond's coming out, we're moving a new pavilion in there. The user groups would have to fundraise for the premier fields, the lighting and the bleachers wouldn't be part of that. That's something that they would fundraise for. That they would like us to more or less level the soccer fields back off. The rugby, they're more interested in the pavilion so that they have refreshments and stuff closer to where their fields are. At the input meeting on Monday was a very interesting, I mean, there was a lot of good comments. And we also met with solid waste. They had, Ken Robo Park was on their agenda and we talked about who was gonna fund dead trees and, redo the trail. And they basically, I think, are willing to give us probably, Adam and Kyle are going to work up a cost, but they threw out a number of like $50,000 to get it back in decent shape. And we have no money. We can maybe help with the labor, but we don't have $50,000 to replant trees and to widen that trail. So our groomer will work on it. We purchased a new groomer to groom a trail, but that trail might be just a little bit too narrow for our groomer. So we may have to widen the trail. And they used a crushed granite And I think we'd go to like a chip, a limestone chip. It's about $6.80 a ton, and crushed granite's probably $35 to $40 a ton. Why they put that in there to start with, it just drives the price up, that, you know, it's unrealistic to think you're gonna maintain that forever. But they would like to actually have a meeting with the Parks Committee so that we can actually work on how we're gonna maintain that park in the future. So, you know, Adam had some nice pictures there. He gave a nice presentation. They did a lot of work out there in November. That's probably the best that park looked in the last couple of years. So, you know, that gate's usually open because they're out there working. If you happen to get a chance to ride through there, you can look at there. They pulled a lot of the stakes from the trees that can survive on their own. They cut the grass way back. I walked it. It looks, like I say, it's the best it's looked in 2 years.
That's all for my update.
If we're gonna be planting trees out there, at the Kenny Robo Park, doing something to keep some barriers so that the deer aren't eating the bottom half of the trees, which kills the rest of it. Be more, intensive about that. One last thing about the pickleball, back to that. Could you contact Mr. Abraham? Cause I thought I had heard he had pledges of $250,000.
Yeah, I talked to them last Monday and they do not at this point.
They do not. I'm just concerned that with the amount of money that that's gonna cost, and there's absolutely no money, no matching funds at all, that are gonna overlook that. It was like, that was one of 3 out of, I don't know, 70 some requests. There were 3 that requested significant amount of money and had done nothing in terms of any kind of their own fundraising. I'm just concerned about
And that-
placing all of our
Yeah.
eggs in that spirit fund basket.
And that'll definitely be a decision that, you know, obviously we'll present the whole, you know, the final Spirit Fund request to the Spirit Fund Commission and then ultimately the county board, and
Okay,
that'll be up to the Spirit Fund Commission and county board. And if things need to be trimmed or pulled, or, you know, that's,
I was actually just gonna say the same thing, that it makes me very nervous that we're focusing our energy on a pickleball court with lack of funding, like you just
Yeah.
mentioned. And also neglecting our playground that hasn't been fixed in so long.
yeah, and
But, like-
the survey definitely,
Yeah,
the
I
survey
think the
definitely
fact
asked
that
about.
it's passing us though, makes me even more frustrated.
Sure. Yeah, and what you'll see,
see, you mentioned playgrounds last month, I thought, or it was month, so, but you didn't mention this time, are there updates planned for the playgrounds? And I don't think of it because my kids are so old, she's got little ones who need a playground.
in the county executives, and granted, it's not officially in front of the Spirit Fund Commission or anything yet. So it's not finalized, but in his initial request, he does not have any playgrounds in there this time. For any fixes. Now, the pavilion one, I think, should be removed because ultimately the pavilion's gonna need to get redone, and I think there's a different focus there at the pavilion. You know what, I should not say that there's no playgrounds. I apologize. Shelter 3, when that gets torn down and that playground gets torn down, which is the one by the rugby field, that one will get a new playground, and there's 250,000 in there for a playground within that budget.
And in that playground, is that the one, wasn't there one that was gonna have some adaptive playground material?
Correct. That would be the one that we would potentially try to fundraise additional dollars for
Okay.
in the community to see if we could even make that playground
Okay.
even more. So playgrounds 1 and 4 are not included in the request.
And at the users meeting, they thought it would be easier to fundraise for playgrounds than it would be for pickleball courts. So that was their
Sure.
theory, that people would be more apt to give money to maybe sponsor like a nice playground versus sponsoring the pickleball courts. So they wanted to fundraise more for lighting, bleachers,
Okay,
and things like that.
okay.
One
What?
thing I will say too is the spirit, when I presented or to the Spirit Fund Commission, obviously I want to get in front of this committee as well. Is that we had goals and objectives too, so that way each project, and then what we did is I created a section on each slide that says what goals and objectives. This is an example, the walkout in.
Sure.
What goals and objectives does that mean? And that met all 6 of them as an example.
Sure,
A lot, those focus on, and I'm going off the top of my head, but for the most part, I think I memorized those, are focused on maintenance, long-term maintenance and upkeep, and current maintenance and resiliency, because right now that's what the walkout dams issue is that it keeps washing out.
sure.
And obviously we can lose the dam. or lose the pond. And then, access to water, because Winnebago County, and I think that's, what you know, as a Parks Department too, that's what we just talked about in our previous agenda item. I mean, that's one of our biggest goals is access to the water. We have the most water in the state. And access to water, increased capacity, for instance. So like pickleball, that would fit under increased capacity, but obviously it's not a maintenance thing. So
Sure.
it doesn't fit under any of the maintenance. It doesn't access to water. So there's six different items. And so that way everyone, this committee, the Spirit Fund Commission and the board can see, okay, these are some of the items that were identified through the comprehensive outdoor plan, through the Spirit Fund process. And then obviously the Spirit Fund focus on legacy and those types of things, long-term impacts. That's why the parking lots aren't in there, for instance, because we're
Right.
just maintaining our parking lots. I mean, that's just something we should do through our capital.
Sure.
So we'll definitely have those, and obviously the Spirit Funds Commission and the board can agree or disagree with those goals and objectives, but just so that way there is a clear vision at least.
Thank you.
When you see them.
And I think it'll be hard. Cause in 25, we're looking at doing the expo.
Yep.
And now that's up to like, at today's price is 4.5 million. So John said that we probably have to do it in 2 phases already.
I have to, yeah.
So it's like, we're not gonna get no more money for this park. What we get for the Spirit Fund,
Correct.
like there's 3 phases to that park and the other 2 phases, I don't know when they'll ever happen. Because we're looking at $4.5 million for the expo center. So we're gonna be coming out of the 10 million that we borrow. We're gonna want basically 2.25 million every year in 25 and 26. I doubt they're gonna give us any money for playground equipment, so we really need to make sure that either we're gonna fundraise for that, or we have to basically switch something around in that plan to get the playground equipment. Because it's not fair for kids to play on stuff that's 30 years old. We shouldn't have to wait until they break their leg because one of the rungs break,
Yeah,
and then we just take it out and they have nothing.
Or we'll have to remove them.
Right,
Yeah,
so
they're not
it's like,
a recent plan, we'll just have to remove them.
when we get that money approved, we have to make sure that we take care of that issue, you know.
I think I'm just worried that I'm gonna have to be on the board for the next 30 years to get it done. Exactly.
Well, there's
Be
so
fair,
much-
we're making progress.
Yeah.
Or at least the last couple of years. I mean, some bigger projects, whether
I
it's
know.
Grumman or Walcott.
It just feels very daunting and like,
There are a
I
lot.
just see the
needs.
money going out in areas that the park hasn't necessarily wanted it to.
There's definitely a lot of needs. Obviously the soccer fields are important, because we have a lot of users and we turn users away due to the,
Right.
and same with rugby, we turn users away. And both of those group put sweat equity into the park. They paint the lines, they fertilize, they own the goals and the nets. And so
Sure.
both of them are already putting sweat equity into the park, and they have been for years and years and years. So
Sure. Oh, for sure. And I
Like
think
the-
I'm also just looking at user population.
Yeah.
Percentages as well.
Yeah.
I just feel like we might have more kids in Winnebago County than we have pickleball players.
Sure.
That's,
Mm.
the numbers just don't balance out.
And then like the second phase of that with the building the new pavilion, and they're talking about making it for like weddings and stuff like that.
Sure.
So it's like, there's so many dollars that we're gonna be looking for over the next 5 years that it's like, I don't know where it'll all come from. I mean, a lot of this stuff just isn't gonna happen. I mean, it's like, we don't have a money tree.
Well,
It'd be
right.
great if we had one, you know? But hopefully we can get the $3.8 million from the Spirit Fund, and they'll help catch us up a little bit, because that park has been neglected for years and years. We don't do anything in that county park, you know,
Yes.
all the pavilions are 30 years old. The playground equipment's 30 years ago was a nice park, but we did
Sure.
nothing for it. You go through the city of Oshkosh, Menominee Park, every shelter they have has been rebuilt. You know, they're putting a new road in right now. They're constantly working on a zoo. They put $1 million playland in.
Yeah.
But the city of Oshkosh, their budget's 174 million for 2024, and the county's budget's 205.
Right.
If you look at the difference in size, that's much more money the park's got. They just built the $8 million parks building, and our workshop is scheduled to be tore down. It's not even salvageable.
Right. Right.
You know,
It's
so it's
hard.
like, where do we stop? There's so much money this park department needs, and
Yeah.
it's been neglected for so many years. Eventually, we have to basically bring it back up to a average standard, you know?
Right. Well, and Adam's done a lot on a shoestring budget, so.
Yeah, I at least
Thank
heard
you.
that, I at least heard that Outagamie County, sorry, sidebar now, but Lauren, when he got there, who used to work here a couple of years, 8 years ago, they had a wood burning fire, furnace still in their shop, so.
Oh, my goodness.
They're doing okay. But anyways, that's my Parks Director update. Sorry, I know got a little long, so. So I think you're in the committee comments, I believe.
Any other comments for the, or, I guess I do have one more question for you. When we talked about doing some sort of fundraising for playground equipment, what would that look like? I can remember, and I don't know what they were doing. But I did contribute 7 or 8 years ago to putting that arch back up. So they had done some kind of fundraising even 7 or 8 years
Yeah.
ago for
They
putting
did a
up.
button fundraiser.
Is that what it
They
was?
sold buttons. I actually met with the community foundation, on a completely separate topic, and I asked, Bill about it, Wyman, and, he had mentioned, I think we looked it up too, I think there's like $1,000 in that budget, and the archway's gonna cost about 100,000.
Yeah,
So-
okay. Just wonder what it would, what,
They're also selling bricks by the arch. You could get your name on a brick.
Yeah, I think that's
Rick
what
was-
that was all about.
Rick was doing that.
I think,
You know,
Had to do-
everybody could buy a brick for $25, have your name on there, your family's name on there.
you
I
know,
don't know how many of them we ever sold.
all I know is the community foundation has $1,000, and that's what I do know.
I mean, I don't want Rachel to have to do but a bunch of bike sales. I mean,
I mean, and there's grant opportunities and stuff too, so keep that in mind too. So once the funding's approved or not approved, then we can start leveraging those dollars towards grants too.
Okay.
So,
many comments. Rachel, do you have anything?
Happy to.
Public comments are done.
Can we ask a question or?
No,
Okay,
after the meeting, you can ask me.
okay, thank you.
I'm just happy to be here. That's-
Yay! Get ready to start those bake sales.
Oh, my God.
Okay, Supervisor Bonzer,
No. I
Okay.
got mine answered.
Bender.
I'll just say that I was amazed at how fast, flower bed got repaired, you know, it's just nice to see things get done in a timely manner. Somebody must have been icy on Snell Road and they turned in and they hit the entrance where
Oh, no.
and they pushed up some of the brick and, you know, I talked with Kyle and, you know, wasn't but 3 days later it was repaired. It just seems nice to actually see things being done, you know, and I got many people how nice the park is starting to shape up, like they cut all that grass. And it's like for years it hasn't been done, you know,
Yeah,
and all the trees, the suckers are trimmed off them, they sprayed them with Roundup so they don't come back. It's just preventive maintenance so that you can cut the grass. And if you spray around the tree, you don't have to trim it all the time.
right.
So it just seems nice to see that the park is really looking nice and, you know, I've collected my signatures and I got a lot of comments from people in the neighborhood that said that, you know, it's the best the park's looked in a long time, so
Good,
pass it on.
Yeah, we actually received some emails too on that, so it's nice.
good.
Okay. I have nothing.
Okay.
Next meeting date is, I think, January 9th.
Well, thank you. I should just put it on here from now on. This is really, yeah, January 9th. Yep.
Okay. 9th at 10 o'clock.
And I'll reach out to you, I guess, if, and then you can reach out, or we can work with the committee if we need to.
I'm gonna contact the court council, see if I can't get a resolution, for the December, we got time for the December meeting, to get that age change, because that was me, I just thought 55 seemed way too young, but if that's what everybody else is doing, we'll move it back up to, what was it supposed to be, 60?
62, one thing,
62?
I know,
55.
just
I
real,
know,
one,
what you, everybody else was,
55.
one real quick thing.
that's what we are, what is everybody else doing, 62?
No, we're at 62. Everybody else at 55.
One thing I will say
Oh.
to that 55 to 62, and I know we're not on that topic, so I'm gonna be real quick, is when Justin and I were talking about it though, because it was put on the spot and was changed on the spot, it wasn't part of our original plan or anything, is that if someone was 55 or 56 this year, they're gonna get the increase, basically losing that third year, plus they're going back to a non-senior rate. So those seniors that were seniors this last year are gonna be, that's like $60, I mean, almost double what they paid, if not more.
Sure.
So it's just something we didn't pick up on when it was first announced. So just so we might have a lot of upset people that were seniors that now aren't seniors.
And we'd be the only one to charge. Every other boat landing is 55 in Winnebago County for a senior. We'd be the only one at 62.
Right, so there's that balance. It's just something that we just thought about that as we were thinking through, we're like, oh
If
man.
all the other cities are 50.
City of Oshkosh 55. There's not a boat landing, there's not a boat landing. in
I think
Winnebago
McDonald's,
County.
right? McDonald's has
Village
like
of
the coffee
Winneconne,
for
Nina.
55, I think.
Really?
Fox Crossing, they're all 55. We'll be the only one at 62.
All right, I would talk to.
It was just a side thing that we thought about
Okay.
when we looked at the man, we thought about, oh, okay, so someone who was a senior this year that now comes back, has the price increase, plus, oh, by the way, you're not a senior this year. It might not be great in the same year for that to happen, at least for Justin's sake, but that's, anyways.
Can we grandfather them in, pardon the phrase?
So for 7 years, we have to keep track of those people that purchased them previously, and that might be a
That's a lot.
administrative
Okay,
fun.
all right.
So it was just a thought, so that as we were thinking through the ramifications of it, because it wasn't part of our initial thought process. That was the only thing, I think that's the biggest thing we thought about. So,
I'm
well,
just trying
that's
to
gonna
get
be a
my
big jump.
part paid for.
Yeah,
Future agenda items. Anybody has some things you want to see on the future agenda? You can always contact me after the meeting if you come up with something before, before next 3 weeks. Anything, Steve?
Just a comment, we should get the sleds back out. Should snow pretty soon and,
do we?
Yep, those will be back out
Okay,
any
yeah,
day now. Yeah, I'll probably do it this week sometime.
yeah.
okay.
And then future agenda item would probably be capital, obviously projects. Hopefully in the next meeting, hopefully before it's presented, but I think there might even be a special orders meeting on the 2nd, I thought I heard, so I don't know if we squeeze it in. Before that, or if you guys are okay hearing it after that.
Anything else? Okay, then I'll move for adjournment.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
I
Opposed? Okay, meeting is over.